Hey everybody, Ryan here at eTrailer. Today we're going to be checking out the Curt factory 7-way T-connector with a 5-way flat trailer end. Essentially what this kit is going to do is give you a permanent mounted type trailer connector in. So it's a 5-way flat, and what this is going to do is allow you to plug into those trailers that have that 5-way flat end, as well as those that have kind of your classic 4-way flat end. So this will work with those trailers that have the 4-way flat. Now, a lot of times, you know, you have your factory 7-way, but no way to hook anything else up to it. So you have a couple of options. One of them being is to use an adapter that plugs in here and it brings everything down to the appropriate connection that you need. I know from my own experience, if you do quite a bit of towing, that can kind of get annoying. You know, you have this adapter, you got to keep track of it, pull it in and out, and everything else. So if you do a lot of towing or just really don't want to have to deal with that, this is going to be a great solution for you. Since this stays plugged in and stays with your vehicle, it's going to be ready for you to use whenever you need it. So if you're not familiar with the 5-way flat end, it's kind of a different, you know, connector. You don't see a ton of them. But essentially what it's going to do is provide us with all of our regular lighting signals, you know, your stop, turn, running lights. And that extra pin here, which is going to be this blue wire, that's going to be a reverse light circuit. So whenever we put our vehicle in reverse, that's going to get power. And a lot of times what this is primarily used for is for boats that have surge brakes and have a reverse lockout. That way, whenever you put it in reverse, it doesn't apply the brakes. So if you're trying to back it down the boat ramp or into your spot or whatever, you know, your brakes aren't going to be locking up. But that's really not the only thing you could use it for too. You know, I was kind of thinking about it with lights, aftermarket LEDs and things of that nature being so straightforward and readily available now. A lot of people are starting to put those on their utility trailers. You know, that way when you're backing up, you know, get some lights coming on. It makes it a little easier to see what you're doing, or even car haulers and things like that. So potentially this could work with that too. You know, you'd have to make sure that, you know, all the amperage ratings and things like that would line up, but chances are pretty good you'd be all right, especially with those LEDs. So that's another option for you as well. And even a lot of times, potentially cameras, backup cameras. You know, if you want to fashion one to your trailer or whatever you're trying to do, you know, essentially this is going to give you that power supply whenever you put it in reverse. So got a couple different things you can actually do with this. Something else that you could use this for, it seems to be pretty popular, is to use this for the light bars that run on the back of your truck. You know, a lot of people put those slim bars in between the tailgate and the bumper. And a lot of times, if those have reverse lights that come on, you're going to need that reverse light circuit. And the majority of them have a 4-way plug that you can use. You know, that way it just plugs in and you get the you know, the inputs for the light bar from your trailer connector. And so you could use this for it as well. That way you don't really have to splice into anything. You know, you could take that light bar in, plug in, that'll give you the 4-way signals. And a lot of those light bars don't have a 5-way end. They kind of just have that 4-way flat and a reverse wire that you need to hook up. So what you could do with this is simply just cut your reverse light wire there, plug in your light bar to the 4-way, and then just wire that into your new LED strip. So kind of simplifies things and reduces the risk of anything happening. You know, that way you don't actually have to kind of start hacking into your factory wires. With this just teeing right in, it gives you that connector that you can use. Something that is worth noting for those of you that are wondering, just because we teed this into our wiring and you know, now have the 4- and 5-way flat functions, does not mean we lose the functionality of our factory 7-way. So we kind of get the best of both worlds. We're still able to maintain all of our normal 7-way functions and have the option to use this connector. If you are wanting to do something like this, if you're kind of tired of using that adapter plug, and even if you really only need a 4-way flat, that's really the only type of trailer you plan on pulling, you know, I would think about even just using this one, since you can still use it with those 4-way flats. you know, hooking it up this way, you at least get an extra circuit. That way, the future, if you ever need it, you got it. You know, if you ever end up pulling a friend's trailer or something that has a setup, at least it's there. If you don't use it, not really a huge deal, you know, not the end of the world by any means. I do want to point out though, if you do have a 4-way flat, so I just grabbed this one for example, somewhat common, you don't see a ton of them that are enclosed like this, but they are out there. Kind of just the nature of the plug here, if you try to plug this one in, you know, that casing around it is going to hit. So just something I wanted to mention. You know, you could always take a razor knife and kind of cut this end out here and get that plugged in, or you could always just end up changing your connector in too. So, you know, is it going to be everyone's situation? I doubt it, but something that I definitely just thought was worth mentioning. I just want to talk a little bit about, you know, how this is going to get mounted. In my case, I just brought it through this little opening here, and I'm going to use the cap to loop it around our safety chain openings. And since this vehicle has a cover that kind of goes over everything when we're not using it, I'm probably just going to keep it like that, not really the end of the world. For those of you that don't really want to set it up that way, the good news is there's a ton of different brackets available that could always attach to your hitch, and actually have this thing kind of permanently mounted like that. So I definitely got a few choices, and you know, you can use whatever you see fit. So underneath the vehicle, the majority of them are going to be set up like this, really straightforward. The T-connector is simply going to plug into your factory wiring and then into the back of the 7-way. And that's where the 5-pole flat connector is going to receive all of its signals. So at the end of the day, for those of you that are looking to do something like this is probably your best option. As far as I can tell, it's one of the only options that are a plug-and-play type deal. There are some other ones out there that you can kind of cut and splice, but who really wants to deal with that? This is definitely the best option, at least in my opinion, when you can just plug it in and you get what you need. And because of that, it makes getting this installed actually really easy. So why don't we go ahead and check that out now. So they call this a T connector, and that's because of this end here. And it's super simple how it works. One end is going to plug into your factory 7-way. The other end is just going to plug back into that wiring that was originally going to the 7-way. Then there's some extra wires that come off that give us that 5-way flat end. So really straightforward, and you know, isn't complicated or shouldn't really take you a whole lot of time. So with that said, why don't we go ahead and just hook this up now. So first things first, we need to get underneath our vehicle and get our factory 7-way unplugged. So there's going to be a tab here, and when you push down on it, it will allow you to separate the OEM connector from the plug. And then what I'm going to do is take some dielectric grease and just kind of coat the coating over those terminals to help protect it from corrosion and things of that nature. So let that kind of set. Now we can grab our new T connector. Now I'm going to do the same thing with this end, put some more of that dielectric grease on there. And what we're going to do is take T connector in, plug it into the factory 7-way, and then these two ends are going to line up. Plug those in together, and now all that's left to do is route our wiring where we want it to go. So you got a couple options. In our case, you could leave it up here behind everything until you need it, or route it out. I think what I'm going to do is just push this through here and hook it up to my hitch. And then I'll go ahead and grab some zip ties and just kind of clean everything up. So I got our wiring routed. I just pushed it through over to this side and then zip tied up some of the extra length of wire here. On this vehicle, we got a ton of space to work with, but if yours is kind of tight, you know, when you do route this, just make sure to do your best to avoid any hot or moving parts. So now that we have it hooked up, it's a good idea to test everything to make sure it's working properly. So I'm checking the factory 7-way as well as our 5-pole connector. And I'm using these testers here, which I do suggest doing. That way, if your trailer has any issues, you can bypass those. With that said, the only thing we're not going to be able to check with the tester on the 5-way flat is a reverse circuit. So we'll do that the old school way. Once we're done checking, we'll get a test light and do it that way to make sure it's working. But with that said, we'll go ahead and turn on our running lights, our brake lights, our left turn signal, and our right turn signal. So to do our reverse light circuit, I just used a test light, grounded it to the ground post on our 5-way, put the other end into the reverse light circuit, which is the blue wire. Started the truck, we'll go ahead and put it in reverse now. And that'll finish up our look at of the Curt factory 7-way T-connector with a 5-way flat trailer end.